Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned. Listen to their screams. Greetings and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast that feels like you're chatting with friends. I am one of your friends, Dave. We're joined as always by our other friend, Ike. Ike, how are you?
Not doing too bad. I just sold some stuff on Facebook Marketplace, and I was not kidnapped, and my organs are still inside my body, so I guess it's a good day.
It's all good. All good when you don't contribute to a folktale. That's good.
That's right. I didn't wake up in a bathtub of ice without a kidney.
Yeah, with a phone taped to your hand. But
That's right.
You know, I've always wondered about that, tale, because it's like, if that happens, right, if they're putting you in a tub of ice with a phone taped to your hand, it's like they're like doing bad shit, but like they're still concerned about you, right? Because they're like trying to preserve you, and they're giving you a phone to make sure, they're taping it to your hand to make sure you have it. So it's like they know they're doing something bad, but yet, hey, they still don't want you to suffer any further indignities. So
they're very what is the word? They're very courteous criminals.
Yeah.
We stole an organ, but we're not monsters.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They still might be monsters, but maybe just not. For some reason, they're monsters that care a little bit. So
That's right.
I mean, a monster with a conscience. What do you know? But thank you for joining us this week for another episode of our podcast. Special thanks, as always, to Kayla and Monica, our wives, for everything they do to support us. And thank you for joining us last episode for a Wives Rebuttal, which apparently was another hit online. Apparently, there was feedback on Twitter that, yes, they love the wives. And, and Monica got props for being argumentative. I don't know that people should be encouraging this behavior. I mean, if they only knew the impact on my life, by encouraging this, but oh well, whatever. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it and had fun with it, and I'm glad they're entertained when they come on, because it is fun. It is fun to have a different approach to discussing a movie and have some different input and insight. So thanks to them for coming on and doing that. This episode, we're reviewing Cobweb, a movie that's put out by Lionsgate that had a limited theater run and is now available video on demand. We're going to get into all that, the logistics, our opinions, and everything about that later in the show. But before we get there, outside of surviving any stolen kidney scares, what else you been up to?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, outside of selling stuff on Facebook, which is a horror show in of itself sometimes.
Yeah.
It's always a good time. Outside of that, honestly, I've been kind of busy this last week or so. So I've been trying to, get caught up on some stuff with work and everything else. Just how life goes. But I did have a chance to start a show called From. It's on Prime, Amazon Prime. You have to have like the MGM Plus expansion or whatever. For God knows what reason. I didn't even know MGM still made stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Has
MGM not been folded into something else yet and just dissolved? I don't understand.
Well, that's what I thought too. I said surely MGM's folded into another company. Clearly not, because none of their stuff is like streaming places, as I found. And specifically this show, which first of all, From, it's a fantastic show. It's like a supernatural horror thriller type show. And it's really cool. Really, honestly, it's a great show. It's very well done. I finished the first season. We're in the second season. I believe there's a third season on the way. But yeah, it's super weird because the only way you can watch this is, first and foremost, you have to have Amazon Prime. And then you also have to have the MGM Plus expansion. Now, I'm sure you could probably get the MGM Plus expansion without Amazon Prime, but it's just a very weird prerequisite that this, first of all, it has to exist, but also that, that's how it's, set up. So, yeah, so if you're interested, take a few steps down Amazon Prime lane and spend about $20, but,
Yeah. It's almost like they don't want anybody to watch the show. Make it complicated.
Right. I think the my next it's not even a horror hot take. My next hot take will probably be bitching about shit like that. But I just kid. But for real though, it's super weird that I mean, because like Amazon has like all those different expansions. They got like there's like a cartoon expansion for like Cartoon Network, and it's
Yeah.
like it's like this weird like video game DLC thing where like you get the base game, but if you really want to enjoy the game, you have to buy the DLC. It's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, Amazon Prime is like my least favorite of streaming services, and it's not because of the
Same.
content. It's just because of the layout and the way it works. And it's like, man, just simplify that crap. Do something. I don't care if you bump the price up and throw it all in there. Just do something to simplify it, because I don't know. And then and just I don't know. I think their layout and their structure of their apps and stuff is kind of odd too. It's just it's not
It is.
conducive and user friendly. But I don't know. I still have it, but I pretty much have it all. But it is literally, I literally use it probably the least of like anything. Uh,
Well,
so
I was gonna say too before we move on, just because I like shitting on it. I have a Fire TV, which is a smart TV,
mhm.
and it literally has Amazon built into it. But like the Amazon app on my TV is like the least functioning app that I have. Like the Netflix app works good, the Hulu app works good, Peacock, Paramount Plus, which is also a shitty app. It still works
Yes.
better than the than the Amazon app somehow.
Well,
Um,
I mean, Fire's an Amazon product, right? So it's like you would
it
think.
sure is.
Uh, but here, if we're bitching on apps, let me jump on and say, well, I love the content. AMC and Shutter, that
Oh my
that AMC
god.
Plus and Shutter. If you're watching something and you have to pause it and you get booted out or whatever, or timed out, and you have to go back in, have you ever experienced that you don't, sometimes it doesn't, there's no resume. It
Yep.
doesn't pick up where you left off. And then you have to there's no chapters, so you have to scan through and try to find your spot. It is so annoying. I'm like, guys, come on. This is not rocket science stuff to put in a resume function or to put in some chapters or something to be able to find your point back. I get so frustrated with that app. And there's so much on there that I watch, because I mean there's AMC stuff plus stuff which I watch, but then all the Shutter stuff. So I love the content, but it's like the app itself drives me nuts sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the app for AMC Plus, one gripe that I have is that the Shutter app works great. I used to have the Shutter subscription a long
Hmm.
time ago, and it
Hmm.
was just Shutter, and the
Yeah.
Shutter app was fantastic. But ever since they migrated it into AMC Plus, which obviously was probably a good idea financially speaking and business wise, like I get why they did it. It makes perfect sense, but at the same time, like the AMC Plus app for the most part runs okay-ish, but you're 100% correct. If you're watching something, I remember I was watching The Walking Dead,
Hmm.
um, the new one, the Negan one, the Dead City or whatever,
Right.
and I was in the middle of an episode and I had to pause. I had to pause, and this might be TMI, but I had to use the bathroom. I had to go number two, so I had to pause. I can't just go and pee real quick and run back. I have to go and sit down. It's a process. So I had to pause. I went to the bathroom. When I came back, it was at that screen where it says resume or restart.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, surely if I hit resume, that's just going to throw me back in where I was. I was, I, I'm a buffoon, an absolute fool. It didn't start me back where I was. It just started the whole thing over. And I'm like, I hit fucking resume. What do you mean it started me over? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Drives me nuts. And it's like, come on, it's been forever. Upgrade the app, right? Make some
yes.
corrections, do some upgrades. It's like every other app evolves, and there, you see little tweaks here and there, and they fix bugs, and it's like the AMC app is just, it's like they've never improved. It's like it
Yeah.
is like still like the day one app from what I could tell. And I'm like, come on, guys, do better. I mean, you've got some quality stuff on there. You're doing good. You got to be. Come on, be user
Like,
friendly.
like I hate Netflix because just for the simple fact because they do the whole like you can't have more than one person from a different household
Yes.
watching on your thing. You get to pay more, all that dumb shit. So I hate Netflix for that. But I have to give Netflix at least one prop is that their app is incredibly intuitive and incredibly user friendly, and it runs like a dream most of the time. So I have to give
Yeah.
Netflix that, but it definitely AMC Plus needs to take a page out of their book, because the AMC Plus app is a hot mess. It's a little bit of a dumpster fire sometimes.
It is. It drives me nuts. And we just may have to just dive into one day and just rank like the apps based on functionality, not
Oh,
on
dude,
content,
that
on
right.
functionality, because I've got opinions there, and it drives me nuts. But
One of these days will be a tech podcast. I'm kidding.
I guess. Whew. But they all have horror content, so it's like people are wanting
They
to
do.
use it. So we're going to talk. So someday we'll talk about the functionality side of some of these. We'll do like a bonus episode or something, and talk about functionality of apps, because man, it drives me nuts. I'm like, there are basic functions that should be there in every app. Basic, just user friendly things. And when it's hard, it drives me nuts.
I
I
say
should
you
go.
don't want to get me too. I say you don't want to get me too started, because a lot of the watching I do, like if I'm working during the day and like I want to have something on the background, I have an older iPad that I use. So don't even get me started about how 90% of these apps don't have a modern iOS app friendly, or they don't have a app that's functional with an older iOS. It's a whole thing. Like, don't even get me
Yeah.
started, man.
We'll dive into that someday, but I'm not going to get all worked up on that today. I've not had quite enough to drink yet, so um but not saying I haven't had some to drink, just not enough. And
Right.
but yeah, so I don't really have much to talk about. I haven't really watched much of hardly anything. I have been so busy. Work's been busy. I've just been swamped with meetings and team calls, and I don't know why it's so crazy right now, but it is. And so I've been totally off my game on watching, and it's just literally I'm throwing stuff on in the background and not even paying any attention. So when I do that, it's something. It's just white noise stuff. So it's nothing important.
Right.
We are almost, me and Monica are almost through our latest watch through of Supernatural. We're deep into season 15, so we're about to come around the bend and start it again. I don't even know how many times we've seen it now, and it's just concurrently. We just watch one and then start back over. That's what we do. That is our evening and our nighttime, our show, because it's like, if we're doing something else or chatting, it's okay to half pay attention. We know enough of it. Or if we doze off for a minute, it's okay because we've seen it enough times. It's our comfort show. So I'm almost through that again. But like I said, we always watch that. But yeah, I don't have anything new that I've watched. I've not watched anything on the list I was watching. I've not seek anything out to watch. I was going to watch Elevator Game this weekend. We'll talk about that in the news here in a little bit. That wasn't an option. So, yep, nothing new for me to talk about as far as viewing. So, nothing exciting there. But what is exciting is our rotating weekly segment. So, let's dive into that for this episode. Two Truths and an AI. And this week, we are on Two Truths and an AI. This is one of our listeners really enjoy this. They think this is a very, we've got lots of feedback that this is a very creative segment. And what it is I got 3 movie descriptions that I'm going to read to Ike. 2 of these are actual real movie descriptions, and one of them was generated by an AI. Now, my wife Monica did this, so I have no insight, no input, no nothing. And she tries to tweak it where it doesn't sound completely kind of robotic. Where they all kind of flow. She's hoping to get them to the point where they all flow the same, so you can't tell by like syntax and grammar and things like that.
Right.
So we get these 3 choices, and Ike tries to guess which one was produced by an AI. Typically, she tries to keep them related to our topic for the week. I don't know that she did so much this week because I don't know that she was real familiar with Cobweb. But anyway, she tries to keep them similarly themed so that one's not like, just jumps out at you. So Ike, are you ready to dive in to Two Truths and an AI?
I sure am.
All right, here is our description number 1. It's graduation night. 5 friends set out for a fun night of camping, unaware one friend's past will bring horror and death like they never imagined. That's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, a group of high schoolers invite an innocent girl to a weekend party on a secluded beach. While the festivities rage on, the number of revelers begins to drop mysteriously. That is number 2. Number 3, A group of teens decide to spend a night at a furniture store that the father of one of them owns. Someone else is staying the night too. During the night, someone with a taste for cross-dressing begins to pick off the teens during a game of hide and seek. Okay, that is the 3.
Okay.
Now,
So
do any of them jump out at you where you instantly recognize them?
the third one does. I cannot think of what the movie is, but I mean, it sounds like something I have either seen or I know of. So,
all right. So you think number 3 is an actual movie?
Yeah, I think number 3 is an actual movie. Now, the first two, both of those are relatively vague. So the first one was they go camping. Is that right, or is that the second one?
Yep. Here, I'll reread the first 2 for you.
Yeah.
Number 1, it's graduation night. 5 friends set out for a fun night of camping, unaware one friend's past will bring horror and death like they have never imagined. Okay. That is the first one. Number 2, a group of high schoolers invite an innocent girl to a weekend party on a secluded ranch. While the festivities rage on, the number of revelers begins to drop mysteriously. Now, I do believe the first time I read that, I may have accidentally read beach, but it's ranch. It says ranch. On a secluded ranch.
Okay.
Both are kind of vague there. I mean, they're
yeah. So I'm trying to think though. So I'm trying to like think to myself. The ranch one seems a little bit more unique, just because like I think camping horror movies is like sort of like a trope, right?
Right.
So part of me wants to say that number 1 is the AI because it's like it's like camping and whatnot. It's like that's just like a thing, camping. So I feel confident that number 3 is an actual movie just because it was very specific. It had the very specific element of a cross-dressing, killer, which, it's sort of a, it kind of makes me think of like a Psycho movie or, something in that ballpark maybe. So I'm pretty sure number 3 is a, cut and clean or, chopping mall maybe. Honestly, I think it might be chopping mall maybe. So I think number 3 for sure is a legitimate movie. So number 1 and 2 are the two that I'm still trying to hone in on. But my gut is telling me that number 2 is the AI because I'm thinking to myself, number 1 is vague enough that it could fit multiple movies, but I think that she wants me to think that. I think she wants me to choose number 1, but I'm not letting Monica get to me. I'm going to say number 2 is the AI.
Number 2 is the AI. All right, here we go. Number 1, once again, it's graduation night. 5 friends set out for a fun night of camping, unaware one friend's past will bring horror and death like they have never imagined. This is the AI.
God damn it.
With the parameter of graduation, party, and murder. So your initial gut reaction was correct, and you talked yourself out of it.
I did.
All right, number 2.
Indeed.
A group of high schoolers invite an innocent girl to a weekend party on a secluded ranch. While the festivities rage on, the number of revelers begins to drop mysteriously. This is called All the Boys Love Mandy Lane from 2006, which is available to rent on Redboxd. There's a blast from the past, Redboxd. All right, number 3. A group of teens decide to spend a night at a furniture store that the father of one of them owns. Someone else is staying the night too. During the night, someone with a taste for cross-dressing begins to pick off the teens during a game of hide and seek. This is called Hide and Go Shriek from 1988, which is available on Tubi.
Damn. Yeah, I should have gone with my gut. I knew number 1 seemed too vague. I should have gone with it.
It's correct. Number 1 was the AI. So Ike, you didn't win that round. So either the AI is getting smarter, Monica's getting smarter, or you're getting less smart. So I don't know which is which, or maybe it's a combination of all 3. Who knows?
I should probably stop huffing Sharpies.
Maybe. All right. Well, let's take a break. Let you cap all your Sharpies and put them away. Just save a few brain cells. And when we come back, we're going to have the news, birthdays, anniversaries, and upcoming releases. So hang in there. Make sure you subscribe to listen to their screams on your favorite podcast platform. Also, make sure you look us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, and Slasher. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2 in Screams, and you can find us there. Also, make sure you go and buy yourself a Listen to Their Screams t-shirt. You can find all of our shirts at tinyurl.com Screams Shirts.
Spread the news. Spread the news. Spread the news. And we are back with the news. I'm not even gonna say it this week. I have a recorded like little jingle for me. I don't even gotta say it. All right.
Save the vocal cords because we got it for you.
That's right. Absolutely. All right. So here we are. Some extra. Read all about it. The news are here. We got A24 teased an official prop replica of The Hand from Talk to Me. No official word yet on the item, release date, price, anything like that. But it appears to be forthcoming, which is promising. I remember when we heard about this, Dave actually texted me a picture or the Twitter post of it, and he's like, "I need it." So, I think the Listen to Their Screams folks here are probably gonna get ourselves at least one of those.
Yeah. We talked about this when we reviewed Talk to Me. We're like, hey, it's made for the pickings, right? Make the hand, people will buy that, and lo and behold, it looks like it's coming true, and I'm excited. I need that thing on my shelf.
Amen to that. We also have Mike Flanagan, who has a series coming to Netflix. Looks like it's going to be in October. It's called Fall of the House of Usher, and it's going to be based on stories from the one and only Edgar Allan Poe. So, of course, if you haven't lived under a rock, you probably have heard the name Mike Flanagan. Mike Flanagan, did such wonderful items as Midnight Mass, The Haunting of Hill House, Gerald's Game, Doctor Sleep. I mean, even the wonderful and fantastic movie Hush that Monica and Kayla did not like. So, I will definitely be watching the Fall of the House of Usher. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I love Mike Flanagan. You can bet your bottom dollar that I will be watching that show.
Yeah, me too. I would watch with either one or the other. I love Poe. I love Flanagan. So I'd watch it with just one of the two, but you got both together. Hey, yeah, let's bring it on. And I love it that it's coming out in October, right? Right in that spooky season. Lay it on us. Let's go.
That's right. So Dave almost went full Outcast with the hey ya.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
No, I love Outcast. that's an oldie but a goldie. I guess it's not an oldie. I guess it's like late 90s. But anyways, we
old enough.
Right, old enough. I mean, 20 years old, so I guess that is old. But all right. And in gaming news, now this is actually really exciting. Dave and I have talked about this actually a few times on previous episodes, so you probably already heard this news. But on August the 18th, that is a mere 2 days from our recording, and a 1 day gap of the day in which you will be hearing this, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre video game will be released on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series S, X, whatever, and also PC. And if I remember correctly, this is coming straight to Games Pass. So for those of us who have purchased Games Pass, we'll have this day one. I am super excited for this. I will definitely be playing this game. I know Dave has even expressed some excitement for this as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have any of those platforms to play on right yet. But so I may have to change that first. But I'm very excited. I would love a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. So I may have to see what I can do there.
Absolutely, and I would venture to guess that similar to the Friday 13th, it will eventually be on Switch. I mean, surely they'll come to Switch. But
maybe.
But right on. So check it out, guys. Coming out here in like a day or two. In addition to that, we also have some very interesting news. So Dave and I have talked about this movie relentlessly. I think that this movie gets mentioned so frequently because we talk about Matthew Lillard, we talk about Ghosts, we talk about 2000s and 90s movies that we love. But 13 Ghosts is getting a revival as a 13-part spook-filled series. So I have long said, and I have said this for eons and eons and eons that the 13 Ghosts series should have the movie should have a series that explains each of the Zodiac. So I'm hoping that is going to be what this is. That this is going to
it
have a
is.
little.
It is.
Is it?
Yeah. They put it up there that each episode will be on each of the ghosts. Yeah, they put that. I believe I've read that somewhere. Yeah, I don't know when we talked about this movie, which time when we discussed it, but yeah, you brought it up then that it's custom made to do a series for in this kind of format. But yeah, I read somewhere. Now again, I don't know if that's official, confirmed, press release kind of information, but what I read said that each episode will focus on each of the ghosts.
That's amazing. See, and like you said, I mean, we talked about it too, and it's like it is perfect. I mean, a 13 episode series about the 13 ghosts would be amazing, and you could just make that like the first season. You know what I mean? There's so much material that you could get out of 13 Ghosts, and it'd still be enjoyable. So, I'm 100% looking forward to that.
Yeah, very exciting. Cannot wait.
Absolutely. So moving on from the news, we have some upcoming birthdays. We have some pretty good ones this week, I gotta say. I mean, I say that every week, but I feel like every week I see a birthday and I'm like, oh, I love that guy, or that girl, or that they them. So on August 20th, 1974, we have the beautiful Misha Collins, who is Castiel from Supernatural. He's a wonderful human being. I love him so much. Misha, obviously plays a wonderful person in Supernatural. Castiel's hilarious. But he's a pretty cool dude in real life, you know what I mean? So
he is such a great guy. He's politically involved,
yes.
Such a strong supporter. I mean, he's such a great man. I mean, he's one of those guys that doesn't just talk and say, "Oh yeah, I support this." He goes out there and does the work, and so he's I mean, he supported the Ukraine, all that, and I mean, he's done so much, and he's a boots on the ground kind of guy. He gets right out there and gets dirty and does it. So he's a great guy. Not to mention from my favorite series of all time and one of my favorite characters. So he also played Two-Face briefly in Gotham Knights, which only lasted one season, but it's official though. He did play Harvey Dent in Two-Face. So
I thought he was really good as Harvey Dent in Two-Face personally. I know that not a lot of people like that show, but
I did. I liked it. I wish it hadn't got canceled, but
what can you do? It's HBO going on a cancel streak. I was gonna say that's a whole nother bag of worms to get into, but also on August 20th, just a few short years different, in 1962, we have James Marsters, who plays Spike in the Buffy the Vampire Hunter series. Obviously, Buffy is a iconic gem in the modern vampire genre. Not only vampires, but also just like supernatural TV shows. It was a pioneer in that genre where, it was they kind of opened the door, I feel like, for a lot of the modern, sci-fi and everything else TV shows that have been able to, gain a lot of success. And, Buffy did a lot of really cool stuff, and it's definitely worth mentioning. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's a good show, and Spike's one of my favorite characters from it. I love Spike. He was the badass vampire in it, and it was just great.
Absolutely. And then we have a couple of honestly, these are legendary masters of the craft, if you will. August 20th, 1890, we have the demented mind of H.P. Lovecraft. H.P. Lovecraft, he's done many of things, obviously, but I think the thing that most people probably know him for is, his what is called Call of Cthulhu or something to that regard. I'm not super familiar with H.P. Lovecraft. I'm not gonna lie. I know of Cthulhu, so that's pretty much the extent of my knowledge. But I know that he's a legendary author who has made a great number of books.
Yeah, I mean he's written a lot of stuff. I mean he wrote the story about Herbert West and the Reanimator that spawned what they used to base Reanimator on.
Right.
Yeah, and lots of other things. I mean he's a great author, very very creative. And there's a whole lot of story just about the man. He's a fascinating dude. But he's definitely one of the greatest horror authors of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another wonderful author, speaking of authors, Another wonderful author who was born on August 22nd, 1920, so very, very close to H.P. Lovecraft. We have Ray Bradbury. Ray Bradbury, of course, Fahrenheit 451, Something Wicked This Way Comes, The Martian Chronicles. I can't think of any more off the top of my head, but those are three that I know of.
Yep.
Fahrenheit 451 is a very timely book in this current day and age, not to get too political. But,
Yep.
He's obviously a legendary author who we actually didn't lose that long ago. I think like 11 years ago, 2012 maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
So,
I mean he's a little more sci-fi, but there's enough there that it warrants mentioning. But I had to put him in there because Ray Bradbury is absolutely one of my favorite authors of all time.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on from birthdays, we do have some upcoming movie anniversaries. 4 to be specific. We have on August 19th, 1988, Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Dave and I have always talked about how Dream Warriors is probably one of the best sequels in all of horror franchise. Dream Master is not too bad, better than some of the other movies, but still nonetheless a good movie. I enjoy it on occasion for sure.
Yeah, me too. And if you want to hear our full scoop on it, we have a Nightmare episode out there that you can go back where we ranked them and we talk about the movie. So
absolutely. And then on August 21st, 1981, we have An American Werewolf in London. I've never seen that film, but I've heard a lot about it.
Oh, it's an absolute classic. See, you got to watch it. There's so many. I mean, there's so many like top shelf movies you haven't seen yet. You have to see An American Werewolf in London. You have to see Silence of the Lambs. You have to see The Monster Squad. Those three right there are like top shelf, and you haven't seen them yet. I mean, you got to put those on the list. You got to watch those. But American Werewolf in London is just absolutely spectacular.
No, I have a movies to watch like list on my phone. So like if I ever have time, which I mean I very rarely do, but if I ever have time to like sit down and devote some time to like a movie I've never seen, I pull from this list for sure.
Yeah. I mean it's a great movie.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've heard lots about it. I just never had a chance to watch it, so I'll have to change that.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have on August 22nd, 1986, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is it really embraces sort of like the goofiness of like the whole Motley Crue that you get with the I can't remember their names now. Texas, Leatherface and Clan.
The family.
The family, so it's really goofy. It definitely embraces comedy a lot. Whereas later films, like the remakes and stuff, are definitely more geared towards horror. But the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is definitely your not so atypical like 80s, cheese fest. That's for sure.
Yeah. It's there's a little goofy, but it's still a fun movie to watch. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but I always enjoy it. I mean, it is not the classic of the original or anything like that, but it's still a fun movie to watch.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then last but certainly not least, we have August 23rd, 1985. We have Teen Wolf. Michael J. Fox, of course, being the original Teen Wolf. We're not talking about that 2010s remake on MTV.
No. This Teen Wolf is a piece of my childhood. This is the movie. I mean, it's not really scary, but it's fun. It is just such a fun movie. I mean, it's so cool. But it's a lot of kids' first exposure to a werewolf or a monster. It was in a movie like this. So
absolutely. I have seen Teen Wolf. Before we get too far, I have seen this movie, so I can at least say that. But very good. So that's all we have for upcoming movie anniversaries. Check those out, of course. But we also have some upcoming releases. We talked about this last week, and much to our dismay, Shudder's Elevator Game had its release pushed back to September the 15th. Now, my wife was very sad about this. She was actually, she was like, man, I really wanted to watch that. She's really excited for it, but it got pushed back to September 15th. So, we mentioned it in previous episodes. So if you want to catch it, it'll be on Shudder September 2015. Or, sorry, September 15th. You have to go back in time to watch this sumbitch. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, it was really odd because I didn't I didn't see anything about this till after I actually went on to watch it, and I looked it up and I'm like, well, it's not on there. What is going on? So then I did a little Google, and it came up pretty quick that it got pushed. And I was like, huh. But I didn't see any reasoning. I don't know what the deal was, but that was disappointing. I was looking forward to watching it, but that's all right. It'll be there in September.
That's absolutely right. Not going anywhere. At least I hope not. And then we also have Bad Things is coming to Shudder on August the 18th. It is described as a group of friends go to a hotel for a weekend getaway and soon discover that women do bad things here. I have heard a little bit about this, not a whole lot though, but I haven't seen like a trailer or anything, but I have heard some stuff about this, and I mean, from what I've heard preliminarily, some of the things that I've seen, that it's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it seems fun. It's on Shudder. It's kind of one of their things, your unique movies, original to them, and I typically end up watching those. So this won't be any different. I'll watch it. I'm sure it'll be fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And then we also have Subject. It's coming to Screambox on August 22nd, and it is described as it's described as, on his way to prison, a man gets intercepted by a secretive government agency who task him to monitor a secret experiment in exchange for commuting his sentence. And we will actually be reviewing the Subject next episode. Obviously, I love Screambox. Anything that comes from that must be at least somewhat good, so I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I do. It sounds interesting. I mean, the concept sounds like it's a monster movie type thing, and everything. But it's kind of I kind of like the angle they go to, right? In exchange for commuting a sentence, he gets to do this. I like that approach. It's a little different, so I'm hoping it works. But yeah, we'll talk about that next episode.
Well, and so one small thing, and obviously I have not Googled this, but there was the movie Creepypasta. From Screambox as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there is another kind of creepypasta-esque concept. It's called SCP. So SCP is it's like I don't want to say it's a meme, but it's like kind of like an online thing. But it's like these monsters, and SCP stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect. So basically, there's like this whole like community about SCP. It's like an internet phenomenon, and basically people create like these characters and they give them numbers. So it's like SCP-001 is the original SCP, or SCP this, that, and the other. So I almost wonder if this movie is somehow related to that, because there is like an SCP that requires monitoring, and just based on their previous history, I wonder if they're trying to like bring it to life. So that could be interesting too.
Maybe. We'll see. We'll talk about it next week, and we'll find out.
Right. That is absolutely right. But with that in mind, one last thing for everyone here. Now, I know some people have mixed thoughts on this, but American Horror Story Delicate will premiere on September the 20th. I have not actually caught up on the most recent season of American Horror Story, so but if I remember correctly, isn't like Kim Kardashian in this season or something?
She is. I don't know how big. I don't think she has a super big role, but yeah, she's in this upcoming season. So we'll see.
We will see indeed. That is absolutely right. But well, you guys heard the news. You heard the anniversaries, the new releases. You heard me lose to an AI this week. But don't worry, the next one I will conquer our AI overlords. But in the meantime, as I'm working out the details of that conquering situation, make sure you follow us on social media. I always like to mention it right now, because all the stuff that I just mentioned to you, we're going to give you reminders of it. We're going to post about it. We're going to talk about it. There's going to be discussions available, everything else. So make sure you check us out on social media. You don't want to miss it. Otherwise, you're an asshole, and you don't want to be an asshole. So anyways,
no.
We're going to move on to our wonderful review of this week's movie. Very anticipated, very awesome, very amazing. Let's talk about Cobweb.
Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. Or you can click the link in the show notes. Okay, and we are back on Listen to Their Screams. And we're now up to review time, and this week we are discussing Cobweb. It was written by Chris Thomas Devlin and directed by Samuel Bowden, starring Lizzie Kaplan and Anthony Starr, who's in The Boys. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor. I absolutely love him. It was released on July 19th, 2023 in a very limited theatrical run, and it's now available video on demand. The box office gross was just $2,384,850, but like we said, that was a very limited theatrical run. It is described as horror strikes when an 8-year-old boy named Peter tries to investigate the mysterious knocking noises that are coming from inside the walls of his house in a dark secret that his sinister parents kept hidden from him. I was so anticipated. I really wanted to go see this movie in a theater. I had heard some good things about it. It intrigued me enough, but there was absolutely nowhere close for me to go see it. So I was very disappointed about that. But there was a quick turnaround on video on demand, so I was happy about that. So it all worked out. And we obviously wanted to review this because we'd heard so much about it. And I have to say, man, I loved it movie. It had such a cool vibe and cool feel and cool look. It was creepy. It was spooky. It was well acted. It had one of the best Halloween time of year vibes of any movie in a while. I mean, it was right around Halloween. And while you didn't see that, right? You weren't overindulged in the Halloween stuff. You didn't see trick-or-treaters a whole lot and whatever else, but it had that feel. And I mean, there was some stuff in the classroom with the decorations and the carving the pumpkins. And so it really felt Halloween-y to me. And I love that. But man, this movie was so creepy. I have to say, Anthony Starr, he was so good in this movie. And he was such an asshole and was just such a freaking prick. But he was the kind of prick that will like do it and then smile in your face and tell you a different story. It's like, oh, yeah, you're just going to accept this. I don't care what you think. I mean, with the teacher that kept checking on the son and all the different things involved in that. And he was just, man, it was the parents were just great. They were so creepy. I felt so bad for the kid. The entire movie, just right out of the gate, that this kid was experiencing these kind of parents and this kind of situation, and where it led. Man, the movie it was great. Man, it was tense. It was fun, and just visually was just. I love the way it was shot. It looked so good and so creepy, and it fit the tone of the movie so well. So I give me some of your overall feedbacks on the movie.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess my first thing would be, you kind of mentioned it, but I'm honestly really surprised that this movie did not get more of a larger theatrical release.
Yeah, me too.
Because Dave and I kind of talked about this, before, but it was like we both watched this movie on streaming, of course, but we both afterwards we had the same thought. We're like, why did this not get a larger theatrical release? I'm not sure if somebody just didn't pick it up. Maybe Lionsgate was just not really feeling like pushing it. I don't know, but for sure, Cobweb is one of the more underrated movies that I've seen this year. I think it will definitely end up, if I had to give you a guess right now, in my top 10 for this year. But what I would like to say first and foremost about the movie itself is that I had no clue where it was going. From step one, I was like, I have no idea how this movie is going to end, because at first you get kind of like, and this is some spoiler stuff, we're about to get into some shit that's definitely going to give you some spoilers for the movie. But we start getting in this movie and you start, he's hearing knocks in the wall. You're like, okay, maybe it's a ghost. Okay, well, now somebody's talking to him through some, weird hole in the wall. And you're like, okay, well, there's clearly somebody on the other side of the wall. Or is it like a ghost? And then you start getting into like, the parents are acting shifty. They're acting a little sus, a little sussy. So, you're like, okay, they're acting a little weird. So maybe the parents have something to do with this. Maybe it's the parents, and then you're like, oh shit, maybe somebody is trapped in the wall. And then you're like, well, shit, maybe they should have been trapped in the wall because it's some monster. And so you kind of go through like the 7 stages of grief here, because you're like, what the hell is happening? So that's the first thing, is that this movie, from stage one, I had no clue what was going to happen next, which is great. You know what I mean? A movie should keep you guessing. A movie should keep you on your toes, on the edge of your seat, having no idea what's happening. And that's exactly what Cobweb did for me. Dave said it. It was very well acted. Obviously, Lizzie Kaplan, Anthony Starr, both did fantastic. Also, Brian, who is like the jerk kid, is played
Oh
by
yeah.
Luke Busey, which is literally Gary Busey's kid. Like,
What?
even though Gary Busey's like ancient, yeah, it's actually his kid. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't know that he had a kid that young, but he does.
There you go.
Anyways, so that's really cool. A little nod in there. The Buseys are a legendary acting family for sure. So in addition to that, you have all these other fantastic people in the film that did so great. Even the kid who played Peter, who's like the sort of the main protagonist of the film. His actor is pretty young, but he did fantastic. I have no critiques of him as an actor. He did fantastic. He played the role very good.
Yeah, the teacher was great too.
Yep, I think her name was Cleopatra Coleman. She did fantastic. She plays Mrs. Divine. And just overall, like I cannot think of one person in this movie that did poorly. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can pick out somebody who maybe didn't do so good, but in this movie, quite frankly, everybody did great. You know what I mean? They played their parts perfectly. Now, one thing I do want to mention that I did not expect, it kind of hit me, and I'm like, oh, holy shit. Is during the movie, I don't want to give away the whole plot, but basically the general plot synopsis is that the parents have someone or something hidden behind a locked door that is like hiding in the walls, and we're led to believe that it's the main character's sister. So, in an attempt to get rid of his parents because they're evil, for lack of a better phrase, he poisons them, and it was just weird because there's this scene where they're sitting down eating pea soup, I think, and like Anthony Starr's like, this soup is good. It tastes they taste a little different. Did you do anything different with the soup this time, honey? And then the mom's like, she looked kind of frantic, but she's like, no, it's the same soup, and well, it does taste different. And the kid's not eating his soup at all, so it's honestly a little comedic because then they're like, oh shit, the kid poisoned us.
Yeah, but it was great because it's a callback because earlier they said something about rats and they were putting down rat poison and the kid's like, oh, it smells like cinnamon. He's like, oh yeah, but it's not cinnamon. But then it's like you saw it until you knew what happened with the soup, and they're like, well, what is it? What is it? What is it? What is that smell? And then the dad just like looks at the kid. He's like, it's cinnamon, and like you're like, ooh, yeah. It's like you knew where it was going, but it was like the payoff was so sweet.
Absolutely. And I was like, oh wait, he said it smells like cinnamon. And he looked at the kid, and oh man, it was beautiful. How they did it was great. The parents, they acted. I mean, like I was not expecting that. This movie didn't have a lot of gore until like the end, but like you didn't really miss it in the beginning because it definitely felt like a paranormal movie, but then it quickly turned into a monster movie. And it was just so well done. I am very surprised by this movie. Going into it, I did not expect what I got, but what I got, I was very happy with.
Yeah, like you mentioned, it was wild because it's like you're watching the movie and you're sitting there like, oh, these parents are horrible, right? These parents are horrible, and they are clearly the bad guys here, right? They're it, right? What are they hiding? What are they doing? What did they do with the sister? What did they do with the missing girl? It's like you thought, oh, they're it. And then you come to find out that, well, yeah, they were kind of bad, but they were kind of being bad to kind of protect and hide away something even worse.
Yeah.
So it's like while they were bad, they weren't the bad. So it's like it's just when you got to the point that you got, he killed him, and you're like, oh, you feel a little relief. You're like, oh crap, okay, that might have been a mistake. You might have just killed the one defense between you and this other thing. And then he's like, he's thinking one thing and he's letting it out, and you're like, oh no, don't do it. Something's coming because the mom tells him, don't let her out. And it's like, so then it kind of clicks with you that, oh crap, right? This is completely misinterpreted here. And, while they weren't great people, there's a clear-cut reason why. And then it really kind of hit the fan from there on out. So,
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I was actually going to mention that too, is that when the kid like kicks the mom down the stairs and she accidentally stabbed herself, and she's like, "Don't let it out," and you're just like, "Okay, wait a minute, let's pump the brakes." Like that was another thing too, is that I was so convinced that like whatever's behind that door, like these parents are the ultimate evil. And that is what they lead you to believe for a majority of the movie. And like you said, Dave, you're like, these are the bad guys. I know who I need to hate. But then at that last little moment, she says that, and you're like, fuck, pump the brakes. We need to take a step back here. Maybe they're not the bad guys. And then literally no sooner than he opened that door and you see the hair, I'm like, well, shit. There's something. There are some nuts in this shit right here. Let me tell you what. It's about to get nutty, and it really did. The last like I would say probably 30 minutes of the movie is just off the rails, like
yeah.
unexpected, and it was simply because you're like, holy shit, this is going into a whole new ballpark for real.
Yeah, it was completely crazy. And, we won't give away the entire ending and everything associated with it.
Right.
But then it's even to the point where, hell, you think it has a happy ending, kind of, right? This kid's with the teacher, and like you think everything's calmed down, and yeah, not so much. And there's even a kind of that cliffhanger moment of there at the end, and it's like, oh, well, it's not done. And it was like I said, the entire movie it was very tense. It had you on the edge of your seat, and it's even early on where you kind of knew where it was going. You or at least you thought you knew where it was going with the parents, and even like you said with the soup, it's like you knew. I was like immediately you're like, it's the rat poison, right? I know what he did here, what he's done, and you're like, hell yeah, all right, he stood up for himself, and then it's like you start to feel a little relief from the tension, and then it happens, and it's like, oh, then you're kicked back into this tense mode of like, oh crap, that what did. It was like the red herring there. So it's and they did a great job of building the tension for this movie, and kind of misleading you, and then really laying it on. And like I said, it was so creepily shot. Um, Everything about it, right? The acting, just the little things, right? Just the facials, the posturing, the angles, the lighting, um, and the movie. While it had its moments, it wasn't into that rut of being overly dark, right? With so many movies, it's like the entire movie is just so dark, as in visually dark, and
Right.
it had some moments in this, right? There was some dark moments where obviously there's some nighttime and this and that, but there was other aspects, and then there was the whole side thing with like you said, this kid where he's got all this going on at home, and I think it's just to build more sympathy for him, where he's being bullied at school by this other kid and not wanting to go out in recess because he's going to get beat up, and the kid smashes his pumpkin, and you think there's just you feel so much pity for this kid, but it's all playing into that kind of that misdirection a little bit. Not that you shouldn't feel sorry for the kid otherwise, but you do. But it was just playing into that. Oh, but you don't pick on the kid, right? Not this kid, because he's got all this at home and he's horrible parents. And then but it all helped build to that tension of that eventually floors you where it goes a different direction. But I love the movie. I really, really enjoyed it. I would have loved to have seen it in a theater. I really think this movie would have really, really lended itself well to being on the big screen. I think it would have been even cooler. I think this will be one of those that I'll watch probably every year around Halloween, because it's kind of set in that time of year, and I think it fits in perfectly. It's a fun movie, I think, to put in the rotation. And I think it'll just, because it's so well done, I think it'll still be as enjoyable to rewatch every year. And I think this is one of those movies that you get a few years down the road, and I think it's probably going to be not saying it's not being appreciated now, but I think you give it down the road a little bit. I think it's gonna be one of those movies that'll gain a new appreciation when people start saying, "Hey, what about this movie?" It didn't really knock your socks off at the box office. It didn't have its big release, but people are going to look at it like this kind of this hidden gem, and I foresee it at some point. Maybe down the road, who knows? But having a kind of a total resurgence in how it's looked at, because it's definitely just it's not getting talked about enough in real time right now.
Honestly, I just want to kind of hop off of what you just said. I would, unfortunately, I'd have to agree. I definitely think that this is going to be one of those cult following movies where, I'm not going to say it's going to be the next Evil Dead, because obviously the Evil Dead has basically defined the term cult following, but it's going to be one of those things where, probably later this year, people are going to start talking about movies that they've watched, and they're going to talk about, oh, what's a good movie to watch around Halloween this year? You know what I mean? That's always a huge topic of discussion, on the
Yeah,
internet. You know what I mean? There's that moment where everyone's like, okay, well, it's spooky season. What are we gonna watch? And I think people are gonna start talking about it, and I think it's gonna get a little bit of hype. But like you said, this is gonna be one of those cult following movies that, a few years down the line, it's gonna get a lot more appreciation. Um,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
that's usually how the good ones are.
Yeah, I mean, people start talking. Hey, what's some movies I may have missed for 2023, right? And this will probably get some mentions, and then there'll come a day in the future where it'll be like, well, let's look at horror in the 2020s. What was that like in that decade? And what's some hidden? Oh, what about Cobweb? Oh, yeah, and it's going to be one of those things where it's like where people are looking from the non obvious, right? Now everybody in the current you get caught up in all the big movies a lot of times, and sometimes you miss these kind of movies, right? And then when you retrospectively look back and you try to find the hidden gems that slip through the cracks and the quote unquote lost classic type things. And I think this is one of those movies that'll get that discussion, where people are like, unfortunately, I think there'll be plenty of people that even when you're looking back at 2023 at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, and people are looking at a horror in the year as a whole, and there's gonna be a lot of people that's like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that, but I didn't see it, and I didn't get to see it. I'll give it a watch now, and I think they're gonna be pleasantly surprised because I mean, I think I don't know. I just think if it had a little more push behind it, I mean, Talk to Me is it's very successful right now, right? It's kind of a hidden gem that's got its exposure, right? Because it's out there and it's doing well, and people are realizing it. And I really think Cobweb could have done the same thing had it been on more screens. I think it would have been one of those. It didn't have the big marketing push, but once you got it out there, people start seeing it. You get that word of mouth, and it would have done well. I think well enough in theaters to kind of been a hidden gem. And I don't know. I don't know the reasoning behind why it didn't get a bigger release. I'm sure there's a whole business side to it that whatever. That I get it, right? Not everything can get the big blockbuster push, but it just felt like this one was really, really underwhelming with the release. I mean, there was nothing out there, and it's like I couldn't even find a theater, that within an hour's drive to see it. It just felt really, really odd, even less than normal, on these limited run movies. I mean, hell, I had an easier time going to see in the limited run resurgence of Terrifier than I did this. And it was just really, it's kind of weird. I don't know. You feel like that if you're going to put it in a theatrical run, there's kind of you give it a little bit of a chance, or you just put it straight on a streaming service. But this it was in this weird zone of its own where it's like, we're going to put it in a few theaters, but not very many, not really a limited run, just a whisper run, and it's like, it was really peculiar. And I don't know. I think they either should have put a little more behind it and gave it a little more theatrical run, or just bam, went straight to streaming with it and did a big push on streaming. Because I think this movie, I mean, it's video on demand now. If it gets, if it secures up somewhere on a streaming service, I think that's when you're going to see this thing really taking a bump, and people are going to be like, oh, what's this? I'm going to watch this now, and that's where you'll see the resurgence probably, is when people can watch it and come across it on a streaming service. And I don't know. It was peculiar. But I very, very, very much enjoyed the movie. And like you said, it's definitely, I think, it's, as of now, a very strong contender for top 10 for the year. As it stands right now, given that we're just a little over halfway through the year, it might be knocking on that top 5 for the first half of the year for me. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. Now, I don't know whether that'll hold out over the course of the entire year, because we got some, some big movies still to come, and then, more sleepers that we'll watch. But this definitely has that potential to be that sleeper hit for us. We talked, like last year, we talked about Deadstream a lot. That was kind of that sleeper top 5 pick for us. And I don't know, Cobweb so far could be in that discussion of that sleeper pick for us for this year. So I very much enjoy it.
Absolutely.
So let's rank this thing, Ike. Out of 5 screams, what are you giving Cobweb?
So, we always talk about our grading scale. We talked about it in length the last episode because there's a certain someone who doesn't know how to rate movies. So, in my opinion, I like you said, it's definitely a sleeper movie for me. It's really good. It is not your typical movie. I don't know if I can put it on the same level as like a Terrifier 2 or a Skinamarink, but it is definitely near that. So I'm going to have to give it a 3.5 out of 5.
Yep. I'm in total agreement. That's what it is for me. It's a 3.5. It's not, it's more enjoyable than your standard fun movie, which we talked the baseline 3 there, right? That's kind of we enjoyed the movie, but it's, nothing super special, but it's enjoyable enough. But yet, like you said, it's not on that groundbreaking, really, really over the top great kind of movie. That would be a 4+. But it's a 3.5. And it's like I said, I use it a lot, but it is a strong 3.5 for me. It is. I mean, it's not like I'm gifting it a 3.5 just to set up. I mean, it's earned that 3.5 for me, and it at least gave me a moment to pause and think, is there enough here for it to be a 4? And then I'm like, not really. So it at least made me take a moment to give it a thought. And it didn't hold that water for me, but it's, like I said, it's a strong 3.5.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I really, really, really enjoyed it. And again, unless there's just, a handful of sleeper movies that we're not aware of that's going to sneak in the rest of the year, I think this is it might hang in there as a top 10 movie for us for the year. But who knows? There's still a long road to go. I mean, we've still got some good movies to come. The Nun 2, I mean, and Saw, and then, like I said, there's always those sleeper movies that we're not really anticipating or not aware of that come in there. So who knows? But as of now, I think it's strongly in the top 10 so far for the year. So.
Absolutely. Would have to agree with you, but we'll see.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I sat there and kind of wondered through most of the movie of like, why is this movie called Cobweb? And then I know there was somewhere where there was a line where she says something about, I don't know what she said, something about the cobwebs in the shadows or something like that. And yeah, she mentions it. So I'm like, okay. So that's where they're pulling it from. And this is based on, what's this based on? It's based on, I think, on A Telltale Heart is what I read.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what they said. So yeah, there you go. A little information. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere, that it's just kind of loosely based on A Telltale Heart. But it, like I said, fun movie, enjoyable movie, definitely one that I will rewatch, over time. It's not one that I've viewed and forgotten. It'll definitely get, like I said, this fits right in there for a Halloween rewatch because it's, like I said, it has that great Halloween vibe to it, a very real Halloween vibe and feel to it, because it's obviously set at Halloween, but
Right.
it nailed it. It nailed it without trying to be hokey and over the top with it, and forcing it in there. It felt very, very cool. So there you have it. There's our review of Cobweb. It is available on video on demand, so support the movie. Go ahead and get that and watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. Like we said earlier, next episode, we are going to watch Subject on Screambox. So if you would like to join us in that discussion, give it a watch. It comes out, what did we say? It comes out on August 22nd. So we still got a little bit of time till it comes out. It comes out next week. But give it a watch before we drop this episode so that you can follow along in our review. And like I said earlier, make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms. If there's an outlet there, we're on it. Just look up Listen to Screams. That is Listen, the number 2, and Screams. And make sure you subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. And if available, give us a rating and a review. That helps us with those algorithms on those platforms and helps us out with our exposure. And when you follow us on social media, make sure you share when we put these episodes out. Help us spread and network and get our voices heard. Like we said, we are your friends in horror. So help us make more friends and gain more listeners. So, Ike, before we close this out and put a lid on it, anything else you want to throw in the episode?
I think my only thing is that if you've learned anything from this podcast today, of course, watch Cobweb. If you meet somebody online, don't let them take your kidneys. And Amazon Prime Video sucks. The app does. So I think that's the 3 main takeaways.
Yes, amen. And we're on the cusp of the official spooky season, right? I know
that's right.
Some people subscribe to the hey, once 4th of July is over, it's there. There's people like us where it's a little bit of the spooky season all year. With we like to watch and talk horror movies all year round, but I try to contain my seasonal excitement a little bit. And for me, once it hits September 1st, it's just all bets are off. I'm decorating. I am whatever. I'm singing pumpkin carols, and I'm just pumpkin spice all the time. There was a thing on Twitter that one of those Twitter accounts that supports podcasts or whatever, they retweet a lot of things, right? One of those type deals. They had a post out there saying, if you could describe what your podcast smells like, what would it be? And I responded immediately because I thought, if I had to describe what our podcast smells like, I think it would smell like scotch and pumpkin spice. So that's at least what it smells like on my end. So, but good times.
Right now it's a little sweaty in my room. It smells a little sweaty. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's hot down here.
Well, I'm glad that's on your side, not on my side. So, but so we like to say Spooktober is a year-round event, but the official worldwide acceptance of Spooktober is just right around the bend, and I am so excited. And so let's get out of here. And like we said, next week we're going to talk Subject, which will be available on Screenbox. And until then, wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.